You know what's funny? When I booked a trip to Morocco, I was expecting just a break: sun, sand, souks, maybe a camel ride, some mint tea, and a few pictures. But what I didn't expect was that I would come back obsessed with this question: is Morocco quietly taking over Africa? Because once I show you what I saw, and more importantly, what I learned, you will see why this small North African country is playing a very big game. I stayed in Agadir, chilled in Taghazout, beautiful place, surfers everywhere, and of course Marrakesh, wild, colorful, chaotic, and absolutely unforgettable. But behind the belly dancing, the surfboards, the spices, I started seeing something bigger, something most tourists miss. Morocco has the biggest port in Africa, the first high-speed train on the continent, one of the world's largest solar farms, a growing aerospace and car manufacturing sector, and now it's co-hosting the 2030 FIFA World Cup. Let's start with something most people overlook: geography. If you open a map and look at where Morocco sits, it's practically Europe's southern doorstep, just 14 kilometers across the Strait of Gibraltar from Spain. It's in Africa, but it's also in the Arab world. It's part of the Francophone sphere. It's got ties with Europe, the Gulf, America, and China. And it's using that to quietly position itself as Africa's entry point for trade, for investment, and for influence. Now let's talk about the port, Tangier Med. You've probably never heard of it, but this thing is an absolute monster. It's now the largest port in all of Africa, and it's bigger than Rotterdam if you measure it by connection to shipping routes. Ships from China, Europe, the US all stopping there. And it's built to scale, automated, modern, fast. This port alone has made Morocco a logistics powerhouse. It's pulling in European manufacturing, building up special economic zones nearby, and attracting companies that want African reach without African chaos. And Tangier Med isn't just a port, it's a statement. It says if you want to do business in Africa, start with us. Morocco is poor in oil, unlike its neighbors, but instead of sulking about it, they leaned into renewables. Enter Noor, one of the largest solar power complexes in the world, built right in the desert near Taghazout. Morocco is trying to become an energy exporter to Europe. Imagine North Africa powering southern Europe, not with oil but with the sun. While everyone is focused on China in Africa, Morocco has been quietly building relationships across West Africa for years. It invests in banks, telecom, fertilizer. It even launched a program to train thousands of African imams in Morocco. Why? Because Morocco isn't just trying to make money, it's trying to build influence, long-term trust, cultural and religious leadership. Morocco is co-hosting the 2030 World Cup alongside Spain and Portugal. It will be the first time a World Cup is hosted across two continents. And Morocco is not just tagging along, it's preparing to host multiple matches, build massive infrastructure, and even construct the largest stadium in the world, in Casablanca. Think about what that means: tourism, international exposure, foreign investment, all flowing in. It's a branding opportunity Morocco couldn't buy even with $1 billion ad campaign. And they didn't win this overnight. Morocco has been bidding to host the World Cup since 1994. That's 36 years of patience finally paying off. While everyone is looking at Nigeria's oil, Kenya's tech, or South Africa's economy, could it be that Morocco, with its ports, solar farms, quiet diplomacy, and now a World Cup, is becoming the real gateway to Africa? That's the story I'm telling today. Now, here's the thing. You don't get this far by accident. Morocco didn't just stumble into being this strategic. They have had a plan, and at the center of that plan is the king himself, Mohammed VI. He has been on the throne since 1999, and whatever you think of monarchies, this guy has been running Morocco like a CEO building a legacy. He doesn't just care about palaces and ceremonies, he has been modernizing the country piece by piece: ports, rail, infrastructure, education, diplomacy. And unlike many rulers in the region, he's not trying to turn Morocco into the next Dubai. He's trying to turn it into the next Singapore, a launch pad into Africa connected to the world, but with its own distinct brand. Let's talk trade. Here is where Morocco pulls off a balancing act that's almost impossible. It has free trade agreements with the EU, the US, and over 50 African nations. That means if you're a business setting up in Morocco, you've got access to over 1 billion consumers tariff free. And that's why car manufacturers like Renault and Peugeot are setting up in Tangier and Casablanca. Morocco's not just exporting cars, it's exporting made in Africa to the world. And it's not just cars. Airplanes, Morocco's aerospace industry has quietly become one of the biggest in Africa. Companies like Boeing and Safran are already here. Airbus uses Moroccan-made parts. You'd never guess it walking through Marrakesh, but some of the components used in the plane that flew you in. Yeah, made right there in a North African industrial park. That's what I mean by quiet dominance. Now let's shift gears for a moment. When I was in Marrakesh, I saw this mix that I didn't expect. On one end, it's ancient, traditional, almost spiritual. You've got centuries old Medinas, snake charmers, Sufi music at night. But then suddenly, you're in a modern cafe, sipping a flat white surrounded by digital nomads and fashion students. That's Morocco. It's not trapped in its past, but it's not throwing it away either. It's blending modernity and tradition, and that makes it deeply magnetic to tourists, investors, and even other African nations who are watching. Let's not forget Morocco's cultural power. This country knows how to sell itself. Morocco positions itself as this exotic yet safe cultural bridge. It's why so many Hollywood films are shot here: Gladiator, Mission Impossible, Game of Thrones, John Wick. And now they have added a huge cherry on top, the World Cup. Think about it. Millions of eyeballs, a chance to show off stadiums, infrastructure, hotels, and culture. And just imagine a belly dancing opening ceremony in front of 2 billion people. Okay, maybe not, but you get the idea. It's soft power done right. Now, here is something I didn't know until I started digging. Morocco is Africa's second largest investor in sub-Saharan Africa, right after South Africa. But here is what's different. South Africa mostly invests in mining and telecoms. Morocco, it goes deeper. It invests in banking, fertilizer, agriculture, Islamic finance, things that create long-term partnerships. For example, its state-owned fertilizer company, OCP, supplies almost half of West Africa. Alright, so we have seen the ports, the trains, the factories, the diplomacy. But there's one card Morocco is playing that could end up being its biggest strategic weapon in the next 10 years. Energy. I'm talking green energy, solar, and wind. You know that feeling when you're driving through the desert outside Agadir or Taghazout, and suddenly you see this massive field of mirrors reflecting the sun. That's Noor solar plant, one of the largest solar farms on earth. And Morocco is not just building this to feel good about emissions, they've got a goal: export electricity to Europe. Yes, imagine that. Africa sending clean power north to Europe. How's that for flipping the script? And get this, there's already a 1500 kilometer undersea cable being planned to deliver solar and wind energy from Morocco to the UK. Yep, Britain. Windy, rainy Britain is betting on Moroccan sunshine. It's called the X-Links Morocco UK Power Project. And if it works, it could power over 7 million British homes. It means Morocco isn't just an energy consumer, it becomes an energy supplier to rich Western countries. Morocco isn't just exporting electricity, they are quietly laying the foundation to become a tech and innovation hub, especially for African startups. Casablanca and Rabat are now home to dozens of incubators and fintech startups. And guess what's fueling it? French speaking African talent. Morocco is becoming a magnet for students and engineers from Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Cameroon, even the DRC. Instead of flying all the way to Europe, they are coming to Morocco. It's cheaper, culturally closer, and more welcoming than probably Paris or London. So Morocco isn't just attracting capital, it's attracting brains. Now here is something subtle but absolutely brilliant. It rejoined the African Union in 2017 after boycotting it for over 30 years. Why? Because Morocco wanted to push its interest in West Africa, especially in Francophone regions. And since coming back, it's been signing military, education, and migration deals with countries across the continent. They are building roads, mosques, ports, and schools across Mali, Nigeria, and Guinea, often cheaper and faster than the Chinese or French. And speaking of concrete, let's talk football. Now, yes, Morocco made history in the 2022 World Cup, the first African and Arab team to reach the semi-finals. Amazing. But the real game, it's happening off the pitch. Morocco is preparing to co-host the 2030 FIFA World Cup alongside Spain and Portugal. And guess what they are doing to prepare? They are building what's being called the Africa Stadium, a brand new mega stadium in Casablanca that's expected to be the biggest in Africa. We are talking 115,000 seats, state-of-the-art design, smart infrastructure, the works. This isn't just for matches, it's a diplomatic flex, a cultural statement, a signal to the world. Morocco is ready, we are not just watching, we are hosting. Events like the World Cup are not just about tourism or national pride, they're about locking in foreign investment. Every stadium, every rail upgrade, every new hotel is an invitation to global investors. They are using it as a launchpad to become North Africa's business hub. When investors think Africa, they don't just think Lagos or Nairobi, they think Casablanca. And let's zoom out for a second. Why does all of this matter? Because Morocco is showing us something rare in geopolitics. That you don't need oil to dominate. You don't need a giant population. You don't even need to shout. You need a strategy. Walk through Marrakesh beyond the tourist spots and you'll see it. Restored riads, revamped souks, smart lighting, high-speed Wi-Fi in ancient Medinas. This isn't accidental, it's part of what the government calls the new development model, a roadmap to make Morocco a regional leader by 2035. Let's take education. A few years ago, Morocco faced a crisis, high youth unemployment and a mismatch between what students were learning and what companies actually needed. They revamped technical and vocational training, especially in digital skills and manufacturing. Now there are coding boot camps, AI training centers, and German-style dual education programs popping up in Rabat, Casablanca, and Tangier. They even created special English-speaking schools for tech and science, knowing well that if you want global impact, you need global language. Smart move. Now, you see, you can't talk about Morocco's future without talking about Africa's fastest train. Yes, Morocco built it. The Al Borak high-speed rail connects Tangier to Casablanca in just over 2 hours, flying at speeds of 320 km per hour. Funded partly by France but operated by Moroccan engineers, Al Borak means lightning in Arabic, and it's again sending a message to the rest of the continent. It's the only country in Africa that still has a monarchy. It's the only one that didn't get colonized by the British but by the French and Spanish, and still kept its cultural soul intact. And you know where else they are going? space. In 2018, Morocco launched its second observation satellite, Mohammed 6B, into orbit. You might be wondering, why would a country like Morocco spend on satellites? Because satellites are data, and data is power. They're using it for everything from border surveillance to agricultural planning. And here's the thing, they didn't buy it off the shelf. They collaborated with French and European aerospace firms and built local capacity around it. So now they have got a growing aerospace industry, complete with Boeing and Bombardier supplier factories in Casablanca. Morocco has also been quietly rewriting the African rulebook through banks. Yep, banks. Moroccan banks are now some of the most dominant financial players across West Africa and even parts of Central Africa. And it's not just casual expansion. They're acquiring, building, and embedding themselves into the financial systems of countries like Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, Burkina Faso, and even into the Democratic Republic of Congo. Attijariwafa Bank, for instance, now operates in over a dozen African countries. Think about that. A Moroccan bank is controlling large parts of financial flows and credit lines in countries thousands of kilometers south. You might say, okay, so they are buying banks, why does that matter? Because in Africa, infrastructure is important, yes. But who controls the money, who provides capital, loans, mortgages, that determines who builds what. And Morocco knows this. And guess who is helping fund this expansion? The Moroccan monarchy. Yes, the king himself has investments routed through the royal holding company, Almada, which owns massive stakes in these banks and other corporations. Let's talk logistics, because while everyone is looking at Djibouti or Mombasa on the east, Morocco is quietly turning itself into the logistics heart of Africa's west and north. The Taghazout port, which you may or may not have heard of, is now the biggest port in the Mediterranean. And it's not just big, it's efficient, modern, and fully integrated into Europe-Africa trade flows. Imagine this, ships coming from Asia, instead of going all the way around Africa, now stop at Morocco, Taghazout. Goods are offloaded, repackaged, and sent by sea, rail, and road deep into Africa. It's like Morocco has become the FedEx hub of Africa. And they are not stopping there. They are now investing in a massive Atlantic port project near Dakhla in the disputed Western Sahara territory, which, by the way, is a whole geopolitical saga in itself. We'll get to that in a moment. But just to stay on logistics for a second, with the new trade deals, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and Morocco's central location, the country is positioning itself as the bridge between African markets and the Europe. Now, I can't avoid this next bit. We have got to talk about Western Sahara, because this is the one thorn in Morocco's side that could either blow up in their face or cement them as the true power in North Africa. The Western Sahara issue is basically this. Morocco claims it as part of its sovereign territory, but as the Sahrawi people, backed by Algeria and others, want independence. Now here is where it gets tricky. The United Nations doesn't recognize full Moroccan sovereignty, but the United States under Trump and continued under Biden recognized it in exchange for Morocco normalizing ties with Israel. That was a game-changing geopolitical trade-off, and Morocco ran with it. They have poured billions into infrastructure in the region, ports, highways, wind farms, all in disputed territory. Why? Because Dakhla, the city in Western Sahara, is about to become their Atlantic gateway to sub-Saharan Africa. If they pull it off and it holds, it changes everything. But it's also a gamble. If international pressure mounts or if conflict with Algeria escalates, it could destabilize Morocco's rise. But for now, they are pushing forward like they have already won the battle. When I was in Agadir, I saw this incredible mix: locals surfing next to expats, small businesses bustling, Western tourists sipping mint tea, kids speaking Arabic, Berber, French, and no one was in a hurry. It didn't feel like a country in crisis or chasing chaos. It felt like a country that had made peace with itself and now wants to lead from that place of calm. So, next time someone asks you which African country is really playing the long game, you'll know the answer. It's Morocco.